From jaw-dropping royal feasts to mindful spiritual meals, Indian cuisine is like an art gallery of flavors, textures, and stories. They say the next best thing to eating food is talking about it. So here we are. I'm your host Ankita, and this is Beyond Butter Chicken. Hello, my lovely listeners. Welcome again to my podcast, Beyond Butter Chicken. Today's episode is about this spiced beverage that is consumed all over the Indian subcontinent. Well, not just the Indian subcontinent. I will say it's popularly consumed all over the world. Yes, we are talking about chai. On the busy streets of India, every few hundred meters, you can easily spot a chaiwala brewing chai with a blend of spices. The smell of cardamom and freshly crushed ginger is absolutely divine. And the sound of chai being poured into these cute little chai glasses immediately takes me back to those bustling gullies of Mumbai. Chai might as well be the national beverage of India, I think. Now, the technique of preparing concoctions using an assortment of herbal plants and healing spices holds its roots in the ancient wisdom of Ayurveda. However, chai became popular only in the 1950s. Yes, that's like 70-something years old. That's hard to believe, right? So, how did the British black tea become Indian chai after all? Well, it all started in the mid-1800s when the British East India Company wanted to grow their own tea and not be at the mercy of China, who, by the way, monopolized the tea market back then. There were efforts made to grow tea in India using smuggled saplings from China. A Scottish botanist named Robert Fortune was sent on a secret mission to China, who managed to smuggle some tea samples and seeds, which were planted along the foothills of Himalayas. The East India Company, however, did not have much luck doing that, and they truly hit the jackpot when a species of black tea was discovered in the eastern state of Assam. This particular species of black tea is a distant cousin of the tea that was grown in China. And apparently the tribals in this area of Assam were already consuming a concoction made of these leaves. Heavy rainfall, humid climate, fertile river plains, and rich loamy soil. These were the perfect conditions for growing a high-end variety of tea. Huge tea estates were auctioned in the first half of 1800s. And then by the end of 19th century, India was at the number one position as a tea supplier to the colonial rulers in Europe. Labor class Indians, however, had no business sipping on this almost snobbish beverage. Almost all the tea produced in India was either exported to the British island or was marketed to the crown servants or Anglo-Indians and higher-up Indians who fancied their masters sipping on the beverage. All was good until 1929 when the world economy started to slow down. The economic depression of 1930 made the tea estate owners dig harder and deeper into the domestic market. A huge marketing budget was allotted to campaign in a true propagandist manner. They approached the middle and the upper middle class of Indians with free samples and free demonstrations on how to make a perfect cup of tea. The advertisements depicted modern Indians who sipped on the beverage to take a break from tiring activities to feel rejuvenated. The ad campaigns endorsed more sophisticated Indians and promised that this drink would make them energetically and intellectually at par with their English masters. However, India at that time was in Gandhi fever, and the famous non-cooperation and Swadeshi movements had gotten Indians riled up against everything British. Despite these rigorous, almost compulsive marketing strategies, almost 70% of the tea produced was exported. It was only after the 1950s when the tea estates were transferred over to Swadeshi, as in local owners, and tea was finally labeled 100% Indian. India was a sovereign, yet a conservative country that awaited modernization. Black tea became affordable to Indian masses thanks to the large-scale mechanized production that is CTC, crushed tear curl tea. A little secret behind making a vivifying cup of masala chai is to use CTC black tea versus orthodox or traditional tea. Traditional loose leaf tea serves a mellow, mild cup of tea with herbal and floral notes, while masala chai demands strong, robust, bold, and bitter flavors, which are a characteristic of CTC processed tea leaves. Chai quickly acquired an identity as the beverage of newly independent India. Until then, people relished traditional drinks like badam doodh, that is almond milk, or chas, that's buttermilk, or lassi, or other homemade sherbets. The East India Company wasn't around to see the day when tea became India's choice of beverage. They sowed the seeds with their marketing strategies, which were then adopted and taken further by big brands like Tata, Lipton, and many more. On this note, let's take a short break and be right back to know about chai and its different forms that prevail in India today.
Some conversations are worth tuning into. So why not share it with Anchor's free all-in-one podcasting tools and make it easy to turn your video calls into audio that you can edit and distribute everywhere podcasts are heard. Capture your everyday conversations and make them available for everyone to enjoy.
And welcome back. We are still talking about chai, and that made me crave one. So I had to grab a cup of tea, and we have some snacks on the table, so we can move on. I recollect what 4 o'clock tea time meant for my grandparents and how they enjoyed nankatai, which is a shortbread sugar cookie, and kari, that is a savory flaky puff pastry like biscuit on the side. Other tea time snacks include samosas in the north, or farsan in Gujarat, or deep fried onion bhajis in Maharashtra. Now, the British taught us the correct technique of making tea, which is steeping leaves in hot water, but the process underwent a series of transformations in an attempt to make this beverage more Indian. Today, chai is essentially boiled with spices, sugar, and milk. The broken tea, or the danedar variety, as it's called, is used by chaiwalas who serve this beverage at every gully corner. While the British enjoyed a clearer, mild, spice-free version, Indians like to add extra sugar and spices to this milky concoction of CTC leaves. With growing popularity, masala chai acquired a buddy, Parle-G biscuits. This duo is so iconic that upscale restaurants today serve chai cheesecake with a Parle-G crust. It's almost like a match made in heaven, or may I say a match made in India. Different parts of the country have adopted this beverage with their own added twist. So let's take a look at different styles of masala chai in India. The first one on the list is cutting chai. Cutting chai of Mumbai is essentially half a serving or 2 to 4 sips of tea, which is perfect for those busy worker bees who just cannot afford an extra minute of break time. Typically, this chai is brewed with cardamom and grated ginger. Some chaiwalas also like to add black pepper for an added zing. Then we have kulhad chai. Kulhad chai is served in eco-friendly earthen clay cups that add an earthy flavor to the beverage. The clay cups are called kulhads, and that's why the name. A special ingredient, saffron, may also be used for those with an expensive taste. Then we have mint chai from Rajasthan. Mint chai from Rajasthan is essentially masala chai that is brewed with fresh mint leaves. Meter chai. Meter chai from the southern part of the country. That's an interesting name, eh? Meter chai. It's the technique of serving this type of tea or preparing it for the customers, and it's compared to measuring a fabric length in meters. And that's why the name. It's hard to explain in words. It's best watch, and I tell you, it's quite entertaining. Then we have Irani chai. Irani cafes sprung up in Mumbai and Hyderabad rapidly around the 1950s, serving the irresistible Parsi cuisine. This community of Zoroastrians is known to have immigrated from Persia, where they enjoyed their tea with piece of sugar and very little dairy. There was an abundance of dry fruits, nuts, and floral additions like rose petals in Persia. But when they moved to India, they realized that this land did not have as many dry fruits or dry flowers, but what they had was a lot and lot of dairy. They transformed their regional tea recipe into this extra creamy elaichi chai that was made with sugar, milk, and a secret ingredient, koya. Koya is also known as mawa or milk solids, which make this tea really rich and creamy and delicious. Then we have Tibetan butter chai. It is an unusual flavor that is rather salty than sweet. Butter chai is popularly available in the northern parts of the country where there are Buddhist monasteries. It is ideally made with a Tibetan variety of black tea, and yak butter or yak milk is used. Because we are discussing teas, I think it would be a crime not to mention the Kashmiri teas. Kashmiri kahwa, which uses a green tea and not black, is quite different from masala chai. Green tea is steeped in hot water along with spices like cinnamon, cardamom, and most importantly, saffron. Occasionally, rose petals are also introduced. A variation of Kashmiri kahwa is the noon chai, noon being the word for salt. It is also known as pink chai, sheer chai, or gulabi chai. And no, there is no use of food coloring here. Unlike any other sweet chai available in the country, this tea tastes a little different. It's not exactly salty, but it's almost bitter with floral notes. It is prepared by steeping Kashmiri green tea in hot water to which baking soda is added, and the chemical reaction results in a reddish-brown extract called choth. Choth is then diluted with milk, which gives it a lovely pink color. Nuts and flower petals are also used as finishing touches. Sometimes sugar may also be used, depending on individual preferences. Kashmiri ways of preparing teas have known to immigrate to the valley along the spice routes from the Middle East. And that by itself is a whole different chapter of history. Now let's take a look at some millennial versions of masala chai. The first one on that list is tandoori chai. Traditional clay cups are dry heated either in an oven or ideally in a tandoor, and boiling chai is poured right into this hot vessel, making it smoke and sizzle for a show, and of course for a smoky tandoor-like flavor. Then we have iced chai or chai lattes from Starbucks or McCafe and so many other companies. But I personally believe what a roadside chai wala can do in his dented old kettle and using this ancient-looking strainer cannot be replicated by these coffee giants. My favorite of all is the Irani chai because it's so rich and so sweet. It's almost like a treat. Irani or Parsi cafes are not new to the streets of Mumbai. The cuisine they serve is even more interesting. In my next episode, we will talk in depth about a pocket-friendly accompaniment to chai, which is served at every Parsi restaurant, bun maska. Not just bun maska, we will dive deep into the world of Indian breads. Now, before we wrap up for the day, here are some quick interesting facts about tea. Darjeeling tea is called as champagne of teas. Grown in the hilly region of Darjeeling, this land is fertile and the soil is rich, but there is not enough room to expand and the plants almost have to compete in order to grow. That puts a considerable amount of stress on them, and as winemakers believe that higher the stress, tastier is the product, Darjeeling tea is easily the top-notch tea out there, and therefore it's called champagne of teas. Darjeeling tea has to be hand-picked. 2 leaves and a bud is what you need to make a high-end Darjeeling tea. Once that is done, mechanized plucking can be done for CTC tea, but the premium quality tea is always labor-intensive and therefore very expensive. Another fact is that the British acquired the art of loving tea from the Portuguese. Portuguese Princess Catherine of Braganza married King Charles II of England, and then she introduced tea drinking to her new royal family. Before the East India Company started growing tea in India, they imported their tea from China. Well, not just tea, but silk and porcelain and many other products. Tea drinking was so fashionable in Europe, apparently it went on to replace beer as people's choice of beverage. They obviously wanted to keep the tea drinkers in Europe happy and thus make money, but due to the trade imbalance and fearing that they were running out of resources to keep buying these goods from China, they started selling them opium, and tons of it. Opium was grown in India, was shipped out of Calcutta to China. And the rest is history. We all know about the opium wars and the addiction and how China eventually lost Hong Kong to the British. The politics of tea drinking is bizarre. And that's it for today. Thank you for listening to this episode of Beyond Buttered Chicken. Please share this episode with your friends and family and let us know how you like it. Do not forget to hit the follow button to learn more about Indian cuisine that's Beyond Buttered Chicken.